So the statistics on the mentalhealth.org website was that Black men are more likely than their white counterparts to experience a psychotic disorder. Detention rates under the Mental Health Act during 2017 and 2018 were 4 times higher for people in the Black community than those in white groups. Black men have the highest rates of drug use and dependency than other groups. And although the white population have the highest rates of suicidal thoughts, suicide is higher among young men of Black, African, Caribbean origin. So yeah, that's from the mentalhealth.org.uk site.
Right. Oh, how you doing, Nat? Couldn't be with us today, snowed in.
I know, I'm like, trash.
Miss you.
Grabbing you from here. Yeah, no, yeah. I really did want to, I did really want to come and do it. I prefer it when we do it together.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're here and yeah, snowed in. I've got the kids tied and gagged in the basement. So yeah, I reckon I've got about a good hour and a half before they start drawing attention to the house.
Yeah. I'm just telling our guests to bear with us whilst we do our little intro.
Okay.
Right. Okay. And then once I've done the intro, then I'll share it out and stuff as well.
Okay.
Yeah. So today's session, we are going to be looking at men's mental health. Now, yeah. I think this is something that I don't think is spoken about enough.
Yeah.
I think that as Black people, we have a tendency to just be strong and bear it. Just be strong and bear it. Just be strong and bear it until something breaks. So we either just go through and we are revered for being a pillar of some sort of strength. I can hear feedback. Is it you? Anyway, we're revered for being strong.
Yeah.
But, I think with mental health, I think it's such a deep and important topic because, I mean, if you broke your arm, you go to the doctor, you'll get the relevant sort of, I don't know what that noise is. Is it you or is it me?
I've got no noise today.
Okay.
It's not me today.
Not you?
No.
Anyway.
What can you hear?
It's like a grinding noise, but don't worry, it's kind of settled now. It might be my mic.
Okay.
So I feel like if you break your arm, you'll go to the hospital, you'll get it looked at. But I think with mental health, there's such a taboo around it. So it's kind of like, you know, if you say to like an elder, oh, I need to go therapy, they think you're having a nervous breakdown. And do you know what I mean? It's just not, I don't think it's looked at as much as it should be, especially with our men. I think our men have this kind of burden put on them that they just have to be strong. And I want to know how they process their emotions. Getting prepared for this particular topic, we have some stats. So let's share the screen so we can share the audience what we kind of came up with.
Okay, one sec. I'll be back in 1 sec. What? I think that noise was my boiler, so I'll take all that back. It was my dirty old school boiler, so I'll take all my talk back. It was
what is that?
But I've turned it off because it's getting on mine. I started to hear it, but I'm so used to it that I didn't realise that it was me. Yeah. I was like, no, there's no noise in here. It's well me. But Cheyenne's bath is running, so I'm just going to turn it off. Otherwise, she's going to be sitting in an ice bath.
Right. All right. So we don't want that. Cheyenne's not going to like that.
Not at all. So I'll be with you.
Okay. So one of our affiliates, I know Bravado affiliates, he is one of our regulars on the show. He put together this video for us in preparation. So take a quick look.
Depression often presents itself differently in men than it does in women. And there are some common symptoms and signs of depression that everyone experiences, man or woman, for example, sadness, crying, hopelessness, feeling worthless and blue, socially withdrawing, not caring about anything, suicidal thoughts even. But in men, some common signs of depression can also be anger, chronic irritability, alcohol or substance abuse, aggressiveness. Even arrogance or macho bravado can sometimes indicate a man feeling depressed or insecure. So it's important that a man goes to a therapist who is well versed in men's issues and how depression and other issues present in men uniquely.
Wow.
Yeah. So when Michael sent that to me, I was just really blown away with some of the things that they were saying in there, and some of the coping mechanisms such as alcoholism and substance misuse, which of course isn't the greatest thing depending on the substance used for your mental health. So coping mechanisms is something that I think we need to look at. And then we went on to mentalhealth.org.uk and gathered these statistics. Nat, do you want to read this while I send a message out?
Yeah, sure. So the statistics on the mentalhealth.org website was that Black men are more likely than their white counterparts to experience a psychotic disorder. Detention rates under the Mental Health Act during 2017 and 2018 were 4 times higher for people in the Black community than those in white groups. Black men have the highest rates of drug use and dependency than other groups. And although the white population have the highest rates of suicidal thoughts, suicide is higher among young men of Black, African, Caribbean origin. So yeah, that's from the mentalhealth.org.uk site.
Right. So again, it seems that we've got the highest rate of mental health in our community. Highest rates, according to this source, mentalhealth.co.uk.org.uk. White men have higher suicidal thoughts, but Black men carry it out. So that within itself is worrying to me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Okay. So then, in preparation for this again, because our mission is always to try and break down the invisible wall between the sexes. So I think our mental health, be it male and female, is a huge part of that. I asked the question in the group, when was the last time you cried? And I asked men, when was the last time you cried? Do you think it's healthy to cry, or do you think it's not a man's place to cry? And some of the answers I was really touched by. I love our group anyway. I think the men in our group are banging. And they answered quite openly and honestly. But what I noticed the common thread is that a lot of men said that they cried at significant loss. So at funerals, they lost their mum, sister, brother, cousin, or whatever the case may be. That's when they tend to cry. I asked one particular gentleman, he said when his mum died, and I said, well, when was that? And he said 8 years ago. So I said, am I right in saying you've not shed a tear in 8 years? And he was like, that's right. And I'm like, well, how do you process your emotions? So I think,
how do you release it?
Yeah, at this point, let's bring on some of the guys that joined the conversation, and then we can just kind of take it from there.
Okay.
All right. Someone's playing music. Hello, guys.
Someone brought the rain to the Zoom.
Oh dear. How are you doing, gentlemen? Join the conversation, and then we can just.
I'm good. I'm good.
Okay. So let me ask. Whoever's got their phone's volumes on, can you turn it down so we don't get the feedback? So turn your turn your volume down. Yep. If it's in the background, so that you don't get feedback. And thank you for joining us. So thank you for your patience and for waiting in the room for us whilst we've done our introduction. Our introduction just basically went over what statistics we have got from the mentalhealth.org.uk in terms of black men in mental health and our white counterparts. The fact that suicide rates are higher in black males. Michael, we also played your video that you made speaking about coping mechanisms that you guys take up and signs that your mental health might not necessarily be at its greatest, and the coping strategies that you take towards that. So I want to go around and introduce you all. So today we have Kwame Opoku, is that correct?
Opoku, that's okay.
Opoku, counselling service. We've got Anthony Ansah, we've got Michael, and we've got Michael Amar, who doesn't appear to be using his camera, so I'm going to remove him. So what we wanted to do was just really talk about the fact that, like, I put in our group the other day, when was the last time when was the last time males cried? And I was explaining that I felt like the common thread was that a lot of males said that they cried at significant loss. So if they lost a mum, brother, or something along those effects. Some males said that they haven't cried in nearly a decade. And my question is then, how do you process your emotions? Because looking at some of the statistics, I think mental health within our community is at an alarming rate. And I think this is to do with the fact that we don't tend to take our mental health as seriously as we would do any other illness that we have. So let me open up the floor. What do you guys think? Welcome to you all. And again, thank you for joining us.
Hi guys, good evening. How you doing?
Hi, Michael.
You know, this has been a really interesting subject. I think it's a subject that not a lot of attention is paid to.
Right.
One of the things you said earlier, Trish, is that, you know, sometimes as men, we're just deemed as the strong ones, and we're not supposed to display emotion, and, you know, no matter what we're going through, you know, and it sends me back 25 years ago when I was in a relationship with someone and the relationship broke down, and I remember, you know, speaking to my mum about it.
Right.
And, you know, my mum's response was, okay, there's plenty more fish in the sea.
Right.
Stop the crying. You know, and I was like, you know, I couldn't get why there was such a emotional standoff, you know, and I was like, what, am I not supposed to feel nothing? We were together for how many years,
right.
You know, but you know, it was this deemed that I'm not supposed to be emotional about it. I'm supposed to just, she's gone, get over it and move on, you know. And I found that these things start to impact us as we go on in life, in our relationships, how we deal with people. You know, we meet some people that are so guarded, and we don't know why they're guarded.
Right.
And one of the things I shared this week when you asked the question in the group, you know, was, yeah, I cried a few days ago because life in itself just became so overwhelming. You know, as a single parent, you know, dealing with 3 teenagers, you know, got my 15-year-old that's just announced that he's in a gang and he's just, you know, smoking weed, selling weed and all the rest of it. My 17-year-old, this is all within 1 week, turned around and says that she's pregnant, you know.
Right.
And then my 18-year-old, soon to be 19, only just discovered now that on his 17th birthday, and you're on his 17th birthday, his closest cousin committed suicide on his birthday. So when he turned 18, refused to celebrate his birthday. When I spoke to his grandma the other day, he was down there over the Christmas, said that, you know, he's knocking back alcohol like nobody's business. You know what I mean?
Right.
And that he's, you know, so when I spoke to his sister, she said, yeah, you know, he started drinking a lot, you know, and, you know, to cope with that as a single person, you know, to deal with all of that one thing after another with police, you know, with my 15-year-old, Ken, you know, even with my 17-year-old daughter, something that happened when she was 15 now has come up, and now she's got to go to court next month, you know, on top of being pregnant. You know, it just got so much, and I just thought to myself, I'm doing this by myself.
Right.
You know, and it just seems like you can't tell night from day, and it's just one thing after another, and it just got too much. It just got too much. You know what I mean? And, you know, I just had a moment where I came out, I got in my car, went around the corner, and I just cried. You know, I had to. Otherwise, either that, I would have just, you know, felt like I was going crazy. You know, and I just had to just let it out. Someone nice and quiet, no one can hear me. You know, but I just had to let it out.
Right.
So, sorry, I have a question. It sounds like a lot to deal with for anyone. And when you felt like that and you had that, so when you do feel like that, as a man, what does your support system look like? Do you have other male friends that you can talk to, male family, or any family? What does the support system look like when you're feeling emotionally overwhelmed as a man?
Well, I'll be honest with you, my best friend, his name's Michael as well. You know, he's great, and you know, he's one of those people that, you know, I can call any time of night, day, whatever. And you know, he's not afraid to tell me if I'm going wrong, you know,
Right.
or I don't think you handled that right. You know, remember that there's team. You know, I think the you know, I think the other thing that I kind of need to bring into the situation is that it becomes difficult when their mum kind of has nothing to do with them, even though they live with their in part live with their mum as well.
Right.
That she has just no impact or no input into their life. You know, it's so much so that it's got to the point where social services are involved. You know what I mean? So even though she's there, she's not there, and she's like, I'm parenting by myself. So you know, their grandmother's great, their uncles are great, their older brothers and sisters are great. You know, but you know, the one place that you need that main source of, you know, to come from in terms of being their mum isn't there. You know, and it just feels like, you know, I'm kind of like the Lone Ranger, and you know, I'm kind of damned if I do and damned if I don't. You know, and mentally it just gets to a point where, you know, I took 2 days off work because I was mentally exhausted. You know, absolutely exhausted, because some cases I don't know whether to turn left or turn right. I've got phone calls from all sorts of places, or you know, youth workers and social workers, and it's a lot. You know, but you know, in terms of support system, yeah, you know, their grandparents are there, and their older brothers and sisters are there. But as the kind of the main adults in it, it's a lonely place. It's a lonely place.
Okay, so Kwame, what type of issues do men come to see you for, and what type of coping strategies would you say is a good thing for Michael?
If going back slightly to your question about crying,
yeah,
that's okay. I think we have to be mindful of not associating not crying with somehow being emotionally numb. I think when you said it, what I'm thinking of is the idea of actually how authentic are you being, how in the moment, because if the perception that I get when the conversation about men and crying is that men somehow have this abundance of emotion, and then they kind of say, I'm not going to cry, I'm going to block it off. There is some people that genuinely do that, and there's other people who are just don't get to that point of crying. So I think it's really about, the question is really about, is if you are feeling pent up and you're feeling this kind of torrent of emotions, and then you say, I don't want to do it because I'm gonna feel about it, or I don't want to do it in front of certain people, then that's when you are actively blocking your emotions.
right.
But there are some people that that's not.
Turn it off.
No, I absolutely hear that. I hear that. I think for me, it was just a moment where I just had to be myself.
Yeah.
You know, I had to process, you know, emotionally and mentally what I was dealing with. You know, you take on everybody else's issues in terms of all my kids and all the rest of it. And you know, you find that you end up putting yourself to one side, and when you come back to address yourself, there's so much, you know. So it was just one of the things. It just got to the point where I just had to step out of the house. Not that I'm afraid to cry in front of my kids. I've done that before.
Yeah.
You know, I've had to do that to express my emotion to them in terms of, you know, the consequences of the stuff that they're doing. This is how it impacts me as your dad. You know, I'll be honest with you. I could be quite open and quite frank. One of the most hurtful and emotional things that in the last 2 weeks I had to deal with when I was I confronted my 15-year-old about some of the stuff he was doing, and he stood in front of me, and he, as 15-year-olds do, you know, they can't really tell the difference between talking to a parent and talking to their friend. And, you know, he was like, listen, look, I don't want to be here, you know, oh gosh, all up in my face and all the rest of it. And, you know, I looked at him and I said, listen, I'm the wrong person you need to be addressing like that.
Yeah.
Right? He goes, you know what? He said, he turned around and said to me, he goes, oh, if there's another time and day, I would have shanked you, you know?
What?
Yeah.
Wow.
Right. Now, I looked at him and I said, all I said to him was, I said, I'm just going to give you one bit of advice. If that's the road you're going to go down, make sure I don't get up. Because if I can get up, you will not leave this house alive. And that's what I told him straight.
Right.
But then I had to get hold of myself. And I just realized what my son mentally is dealing with. For him to get to that point, I just realized this is gang talking, you know. But the fact that you can look at me as almost no longer your dad, yeah, and see me as almost like an enemy, yeah. And I had to remind him, every time you're in a situation, when you got stabbed 2 years ago, who came to the door? Police came to my door, not your mum's. Come to my door. Who's the one who had to come to A&E and deal with your situation? Me. When you got stopped by police in a car with and I'm going to tell you straight, I'm going to be very open and frank with you guys, yeah? With a 40-year-old man with Class A drugs and £400 cash on you, who is it that the police called? Me, yeah? So you forget that when you're in your shit or your problems, excuse my French, it falls back at my feet. So that the moment you want to stand there and say, you want to shank me, remember that's where you cut off your help, right?
Yeah.
That's where for you it ends.
Yeah.
Yeah, because now you're left by yourself because you know your mum ain't gonna help you. You're left by yourself. And I had to sit down after that situation. I had to sit down and think to myself, wow, you know, with all that you do for your child, that they can look at you and generate that thought. Who do I go and talk to now? So I called my best friend and I said to him, I said, Mike, you know what? This is what happened with Regan and blah, blah, blah. And he turned around and said to me, you know what? He doesn't like to be challenged directly. So that was a defense mechanism for him. Because you was in his face straight away. You was cutting off anything you say. He goes, he was looking at it as a defense. He said, try from a different angle. Go at him at a different angle. So I did. And I said to him, I called him back. I gave him a couple of days to calm down. And I called him back and I said, right, look, we need to talk. And I said to him, whatever you said about wanting to shank me, I said, let that go. Right? We will come back to it at another point, but I'm going to let that go for the time being.
Right.
But I need to understand, son, where you're thinking and why you think the way you think. Why you do what you do. Okay? Is it me? Do you feel that I'm failing you as a dad? Is there things that you need me to do more for you? Is there things you need to do less for you? Because I had to understand that I'd made sure I was coming correct. Because then he can't turn around. If I know where the problem, where the triggers are, then I know how to address them. You know? Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt. Question we've got is: do we think there is a link of like depression and emotional turmoil which causes youth to join gangs?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I believe so. I work for Luton Football Club, and I work also with the community part of the company, with the club, where we go into schools and we run football programs for kids, where we take them off the streets, and we run football sessions. And a lot of the boys that I speak to there, a lot of it is, again, and you see it in the video that I did, a lot of it is a macho show. And that macho show masks a lot of internal trauma, or a lot of mental traumas, whether it be single parent abuse, whether it be drug abuse, whether it be alcohol, whether it be neglect, or whatever the case may be. A lot of it is a mask. And sometimes and this is why I had to change my angle with my child. Sometimes when I sit down and talk to a lot of them, they're really, really sensitive children.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about hard, tough 17-year-olds. When you see one of you ain't saying, bro. You know what I mean? When you sit down and talk to them, it's a completely different program.
Yeah.
You know?
To go back
I think a lot of them, we've got to strip back you know, the masquerade and the mask, and get back to, you know, there's stuff that's going on with these kids.
Definitely. Someone comment, someone said, sounds like he's talking from a place of pain.
Yeah.
And to pick up something that you said, Michael, and to go back to a comment that Kwame said, it's not that I'm just assuming that everyone just pents up. I know everyone deals with their emotions differently, but as a female, I know how I deal with my emotions, and I know how my friends deal with theirs. But Michael just said something interesting. Like, he said that it comes from, sometimes certain types of talk comes from a place of machoism. So it then, for us on the outside looking in, because that's the whole point of this platform, is to try and understand our men, to understand how you process things and how you would want us as women, as your counterpart, to support you. So I just wanted to pick you up on that. And I also wanted to involve Anthony, because Anthony's just been sitting there patiently.
Sorry, Trish. Jonathan said he's in the waiting room.
Okay.
Oh, he's been in the waiting room.
All right, let's admit Jonathan. Yeah. So it's a two-part question. First, Kwame, if do you find that there are more men that come from a place of machoism and just don't particularly want to show their emotions, or is it just different across the board?
For me, because in terms of my work with clients, black male clients, someone is coming into therapy with, in terms of private practice, they have a certain amount of self-awareness and a certain amount of insight. Right. So they've got to a position where they know that they need help. Right. So they're not coming with a position from a place of projecting a certain amount of you know, masculinity and acting out. They've got to a point where they recognize that, actually, you know what, I do need help right now. So for me, in the work that I do with black male clients, it's coming from a slightly different place.
Okay. What types of age groups do you work with?
20, 30, 40.
30s, 40s.
20, 30s, 40s.
Right. Okay, Anthony, thank you for waiting so patiently.
That's okay.
What would you like to say on the topic?
Well, first of all, Michael, I'm really sorry that you're going through what you're going through right now.
Thanks, bro.
And I guess, you know, issues that people have gone through, because all my issues were like about 8 years ago, you know, where I had a really freaky accident one day, just trying to run with some bunch of kids, I guess, you know, trying to do a 100-meter race. And as I'm running, my left knee pops. And literally in midair, I'm looking down on my knee and it's dragging. And then I try and land on my right foot and I twist it. And I fall down on the ground and both my legs are pointing different ways that they shouldn't be. And I get taken to hospital and my doctor says that this is like once in, I don't know, God knows whatever, but I've basically fractured both my legs. I didn't break any bone, but literally all the ligaments and everything connecting my leg to my knees were all ripped. So then this little fun fair that I went to for about 20 minutes ended up being in hospital, and I didn't go back home for nearly 2 months. I was then at home for about nearly 6 to 7 months. In that time there, the only time I got to go out was through an ambulance crew coming to pick me up and taking me to the hospital. And that's what I was going through. And basically one day I just broke and cried my head out and tried to commit suicide.
Okay.
You know? I took a whole load of tablets, drank a whole load of brandy, and, you know, obviously I'm here now, so it didn't happen, but, you know, I passed out. And next minute I woke up and 2 ambulance crew are in my bedroom. My mum's at the end of the bed, just terrified out of her head, you know. And it's like, it's strange because before then, I always used to see sometimes on the news that, oh, this person's committed suicide or that person's done this. And I always used to think, what a coward way of, you know, going out.
Yeah.
And until sometimes you go through something, you just don't know, you know, because for me, you know, it's like now I understand why people go through these things and want to commit suicide, because I literally I got so low, I didn't see light or day, you know, I just wanted to end my life, you know, and I thought of different ways, and that was the way that, you know, I tried to go and try to do it. So, but myself personally, I've never been like a macho person. I'm a very straight person. It's either black or white. If I'm mad, I'm mad. If I'm sad, I'm sad. And you know, but going through what I went through, I kind of like learned a lot about my friends and my family. Because I guess sometimes you don't know who's really got your back until you go through stuff, you know. So I mentally locked a lot of people out of my life that weren't good for me, and you know, fixed myself up, you know. But then whilst I was going through all of that, my mum was actually dying of cancer. You know, she had cancer. She never told me.
Oh.
She never told me because of what I'd already gone through. So literally, when I tried to commit suicide, about 3 to 4 months later, you know, one day she phoned me to say she's not feeling well. You know, we take her to the hospital. 2 days later, doctors tell me she's got cancer and it's everywhere, and she's gonna die any day, week now. 5 days later, she died. You know, so yeah, that was also very hard to deal with. You know, so yeah, I mean, in terms of crying, I cry whenever, mate. You know, but
You cry whenever.
yeah,
Yeah.
well, whenever stuff has happened, you know, you know, I never knew people that died. You know, I always used to think I was quite lucky because I never knew anybody that passed away. You know, I hear of a friend of a friend, you know, and then all of a sudden, boom, there's my mum. You know what I mean? So yeah, I guess I cried a lot. Since then, I really cried a lot. You know, and I actually think crying is good. You know, because when you go through that kind of like emotion, you know, it's like you've had that cry and like, okay, what am I going to do now? You know, am I going to keep crying or try and fix this? You know, and I was lucky that, yeah, you know, I made sure I surround myself with good family and friends, and, you know, and counseling, it was about three different people, close people, friends of mine, and they all kind of like mentioned, you know, before about, you know, going to see a counselor, you know, getting some counseling. And after the third person said that to me, I thought, okay, then people obviously are seeing something that, you know, for them to suggest this. And it's strange because after about a few sessions talking to this complete stranger that I don't know from Adam, you know, I knew that I was okay, but I still finished the whole session, because I think you get with NHS, you get 10 sessions.
10 sessions.
Yeah. So, and I really, after like the 8th session, I knew that I didn't really need to see this guy anymore, or lady anymore, but I still finished it, and, you know, just go on with life, and here I am now, you know. But so it's like when I hear things like this, I always like to talk about it, because I think you are right that a lot of guys like to bottle things in, you know, don't like to open up themselves, you know. I don't know if it's a male thing, you know, because I don't know if us males always have to play the big man and, you know, can't see me crying or whatever. I think probably it is, personally, you know. I think a lot of guys do bottle a lot of things in.
I think Kwame brought up an interesting point, that it's not always that men just don't want to cry, but I think with some of the experiences, and just by starting this No Bravado group and asking direct questions and some of the direct answers we get back, it does appear that some men seem to feel like it's only acceptable to cry at very major events. There was only a couple that said that they did. And like I said, it just kind of raised the question for me, looking at the statistics, you know, all of these things that we go through, if you speak to someone about talking to a therapist, the usual response is, I don't need a therapist. And it's trying to break through that stigma, because I think I spent a lot of time in therapy because I had 3 older brothers and they all passed away. So one died, he died, and then the second one committed suicide, and the third one died of an aneurysm, which to me speaks stress. So because he was going through, I knew he was going through little bits and pieces at the time, but no one could really ascertain how stressed he was to the point where it caused death, you know? So I guess this is why I really want to really drill down on this topic. But first, let me introduce Jonathan. Hi, Jonathan.
You're right,
Us today. It was Jonathan who actually brought this topic to us and said that he would really like to talk about mental health. So as we've got the spotlight on you, Jonathan, do you want to talk about your experiences as a white male? Because that's our obvious difference here. Yeah.
I was chatting to Nat earlier, and I was saying, do you know what? It's not a point about. I don't think like a white male and a black male or a Chinese male or an Indian male. I think the problem with mental health is it's a humanitarian problem, and I think that different races kind of deal with things a lot differently. So from my perspective, it's I've got quite a lot of black friends, I've got quite a lot of white friends, I've got quite a lot of all friends, but especially from my black friends community, you know, they don't speak up as much as some of my white friends would. But I'll get a community of some Indian friends that I have, they speak up quite a bit about it. So it's like, there's the problems, obviously, it's not about colour, it's about humanitarian problem with male and with mental health. And I don't think it's categorized about who talks and this talks. We all go through it. And yeah, so when I sort of shouted you guys, I said I think it'd be good to do a show basically just talking about basically just men without looking at anything else, your age, your colour, your background, anything. It was just about men not talking about mental health. And I think and we've seen it. We've got global superstars. We've got Tyson Fury, who's the heavyweight champion of the world, who openly says his mental health is fucking crazy. Excuse my French. You know, we've got sports stars, we've got people in the media, we've got it's everywhere. Race, colour, male, even female. It's just my point. I think that males, our statistics are a lot more crazy than what the females are, especially from what I've seen. So it's definitely, it's a real important issue to talk about. Now, from my perspective, I think I don't know, where does it start? I don't know, like, you know, mental health, what is it? I don't know what it is. It for me, I've gone through it. Some would say still going through it, passing it. I don't know what stage I'm at. I feel that point of like, I've gone through the worst of it. I'm not consumed every day. I'm not sitting in my bed. I'm not not taking people's phone calls. I'm not acting weird with people that I love. Sometimes I still do, they get twisted, but I'm at a point now where I think I'm at the danger zone in terms of wanting things to be finished. So yeah, I mean,
when you say wanting things to be finished, do you mean your life?
Yeah. It's not. Do you know what it is? I find like now talking about it, it's nice to, not nice. It's a horrible conversation. It's horrible to say to people that fucking you don't want to be here anymore. Do you know what I mean? And not matter of fact, not like oh, you know, this life's so crap, and generally acting on that. And a couple of occasions for me where there was two different occasions. Mine was like chalk and cheese in terms of that. Like mine went from wanting pills and fucking drink myself to death in the bar, which we can elaborate on a little bit more, but it's just more of a broad conversation, to then another time driving to a local bridge and just sitting on there. And
really,
I don't know if it was like I don't know, because it wasn't like, I'd love to say there was a sign from God and I saw it. Something weren't right about what I was thinking. Like, nah, not for me. But I went there with the intention of it. So yeah, I went.
One of the things that, sorry, just want to interrupt. I think one of the things that we all look for is some type of an escape. You know what I mean? And you know, when I was looking at, you know, my situations, you know, even over the last 2 or 3 years, you know, I've had thoughts like, how can I just leave this behind? I've never actually had suicidal thoughts, but you know, there's days when I just think, I just wish I didn't have none of this.
Yeah.
Where can I go and just start again? You know, there must be something I can do, you know, that I could just do away with this. I don't have to handle this no more. You know what I mean? And, you know, I remember once I got in my car, I didn't have the kids with me, and I got in my car and I filled up the tank and I just drove and I drove and I drove. And then I realized I was crossing the Severn Bridge and I was entering Wales. Right?
Wow.
Yeah. Because I just wanted to go somewhere where it wasn't my environment. I didn't know nobody. I didn't recognize nothing. A bit hard because I'm a coach driver and I know most places, but well, I was a coach driver, but I just drove. I didn't care where I was going. I could north, east, south, west. I don't care. I just drove, and you know, and I think sometimes we get to that point where we need some type of escapism, you know, and sometimes you feel imprisoned by your own thoughts. You're imprisoned by your own situations, and there's no, you know, there's no one coming to open the door and say, okay, look, time out now, you know, come on, you know, blah blah blah. But you know, I commend you because I went through a period of counselling for several different reasons over periods of time for different things in my life, and I would encourage anybody and everybody, always find and have someone to talk to. You know,
yeah. Can I ask a question? It's a two-part question, partly to you and partly to Kwame. You said earlier that when you had spoken to your mum about your relationship, the response was to suck it up. And so do you feel like that makes it difficult for you to speak to your other half or women because of that?
No. Well, at first it did. I'll be honest with you, at first it did. And then I realized the impact of, you know, this macho bravado where we're not supposed to display or show any emotion, how dangerous it can be in terms of your relationships. And it cost me a couple of relationships when I just thought, you know what, fuck it, I ain't saying nothing to nobody. However I feel is however I feel. You don't need to know how I feel. You know what I mean? If I'm looking after you, that's all that's good. You know what I mean? When there's issues that arose, I just found that everything became a hostile situation because I refused to open up and I refused to show any emotion. I didn't want to tell you I love you. I didn't want to tell you how I feel about you, right? You didn't need to know that. You get what I'm saying? And then I just realized, it was almost like a light went on. I just thought, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Just because your mum said, suck it up, you know? And I think in some part, that's kind of, that's almost like a cultural thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That, you know, we're not supposed to, as, you know, men, you know, as men display kind of relationship, emotion in relationships. And, you know, I think we had a discussion about this a couple of months ago on in the group where was talking about it. And I said, we never ever saw our grandparents in love and displaying love. You know what I mean? And our parents never were ones of showing love and things, you know, but we as adults now, in terms of how we do with our children, know how to show love and care and compassion and all that kind of stuff. So I think there's a generational thing that's come down, and I think it's kind of broken with our generation. You know what I mean? But it took a lot, and I went to counselling and I had to understand, why do I feel like this towards people or women? And then I had to track back and realize that where did this come from? Because up until that point, I didn't have this problem.
Right.
So there was, you know, sometimes the words that we speak, you know, sow seeds in our mind and trend, you know, conform the way we think from that point onwards. And I had to go back and address my mum with that as well. You know, sometimes you recognize it to yourself. And I went back to my mum and I said to her, listen, remember that time, all of 20-something years ago, and remember that time when I broke up with that girl and you said to me, yeah, suck it up for blah, blah, blah. I said, why did you say that?
Right.
Why did you say that? Well, you know, we are cry for. You know, men nothing cry, we are cry for. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I said, I cried because I was hurting.
Mm.
I cried because we broke up. We've been together for 4 years and it hurt.
I think sometimes as well with that generation, they don't know what to do when a man, I think with a lot of people, they don't know what to do. It's hard if you're close to someone, if you know someone, when they break down, it's a bit of a struggle. Sometimes you're like, oh my gosh, or if they're going through something, you don't always know what to do. So especially where it's seen as men don't really break down, when they do, sometimes people just like, stop, because it makes them feel awkward. Does that make sense? Not that that's a good thing, but I think that is a lot of the.
Yeah, I think she just didn't know what to do say other than that. You know, to me personally, I bet you didn't say anything. You know, just put your arm around me, hug me, say, there, son, and go about your business.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Question for Kwame that's come through. Do you think that religion and the stigma and religion in the Black community stops people from coming to counselling?
Depends how religious people are. So one of the questions I ask people is what is their faith and what and belief system, and majority of people are Christian. Some of them are practicing Christians, some of them are kind of, you know, they're Christian by upbringing. So it hasn't been a barrier or to stopping people coming to therapy. At the same time, there's been stories of kind of a very, let's say, harsh church upbringing, sometimes being quite traumatic.
Yeah, I've been there.
Okay,
I've been there. I've grown up in church.
Sometimes faith and religion can be a very, very great platform in terms of people's spiritual beliefs. Can be very, very good in giving them hope and giving them the strength to deal with the challenges. But sadly as well, it can be a catalyst for people's mental distress as well, because religion can be, depends on the persuasion of the belief system, can be very, very insular, can be very, very pressurized in terms of this is the kind of person that you should be versus the person that you
are.
Yeah,
I find the problem with religion and counseling, religion and things like that is, this is why I kind of came out of the church, is that you are almost separated from reality. Okay, you have this faith-based belief of things that, you know, we're going to get to heaven, we're going to do this. But I said, yeah, but how do we cope here? What do we do down here? There's so much praying. There's only so much praying you can do. There's only so much singing and worshiping you can do. You still have to live a very real life here on earth. Okay, and I say this, I remember when I got divorced, and I remember when I went to my pastor and I said to him, what do you do now that you are on your own? There's nobody else in the house. There's no one in your bed. What do you do now? When you're used to having sex on tap and you're used to having somebody there, what do you do now? And he turned around and said, well, just pray. And I was like, that's okay for you because you have a pair of legs in your bed. I don't. You know? How do I cope as a man? Sexually, emotionally. Yeah, it's true. Sexually, emotionally, how do you cope? And there's this detachment, again, from this kind of spiritual sense to a very real sense of the life that you're living here on earth. You know what I mean? And I find that the reality, you know what I mean, of, like I said, there's only so much praying you can do. There's only so much singing you can do. There's only so much going to church you can do. But when you come home from all of that, when you've left that behind and you're back home in the four walls of your house, when reality hits you, what happens then? When you feel that God can't hear you and people that you talk to can't hear you, what happens then?
Yeah. And I think sometimes what I like to break it down to is, like, we talk about mind, body, and spirit. So certain things are of the spirit, certain things are of the mind and body. And quite often it's like when we conflict the two, that's when it can be a recipe for disaster. So if you're dealing with mind body issues and your only redresses spiritual solutions, it doesn't touch the sides. And I think that can be particularly in the kind of, like, let's say the Black community, African Caribbean community, where if we over spiritualize everything is used, everything comes from a spiritual frame of reference in terms of kind of like pray. I was like literally pray away, or if something's happening to you, it's from a spiritual source.
Yeah. So, but there's a quotation that says, you could be so heavenly minded that you have no earthly good.
I don't know that one, but I'll go with
But
that
yeah.
one. So,
Yeah.
But yeah, so I think that can be part of the danger, is that everything's overly spiritualized. All the problems are spiritualized, and all the solutions are spiritualized, when actually it's a physical, or it's an emotional issue.
Yeah. So sorry. No, I was going to go back to Jonathan as well, and Anthony as well, because they both here have said that Anthony attempted suicide, and Jonathan has been very close to twice, and they're here today, so they've managed to get through that. But what, as I asked Michael earlier, what does your support system look like right now? Because that's important for us with all of this, is because we feel like sometimes men don't feel like they can. It's not just that they won't. Sometimes it's just that you don't feel like you have that safe space or that safe environment to do that. So how, when you guys do feel low, because I'm sure it's still quite an up and down journey at times, how do you kind of navigate that? And what does your support system look like around that? Both of you? Jonathan?
Go first. You know what it is? Yeah, I think for me, yeah, I think it's a tricky one. Like, so when you have them thoughts, or, I mean, I didn't elaborate fully on what I was doing, what I was about to do, and whatever, but save that for another conversation. But I think thinking stuff and wanting to do it and do it and stuff, I think it's very hard to maybe for females. We're talking about males today, like finding it hard to say, I don't want to be here anymore. I mean, imagine trying that as a serious conversation with someone. Like, imagine just sitting someone down or texting someone saying, I want to have a chat, and you sit them down and say, I don't want to be here. It's a very deep thing to say to somebody. I think, like, I think I heard a point earlier about where, you know, some people don't, I think it was you, Natalie, and you said that people sometimes just don't know how to react. It's such a big thing.
Yeah.
It almost becomes a burden on somebody. It's like, oh, you said that. And it's like, you decide to put that burden on, because this is not a conversation about, you know, I feel, I don't know where to put my stocks and investments, or, you know, my wife's pissing me off, or, you know, oh, the kids are driving me crazy. It's not an easy chat. I think when you actually sit a person down and say, I feel like I don't want to be here anymore. And for me, I don't know if it's an alpha male thing. I don't know if it's a humanitarian thing, but it's a massive burden to put on someone. So I don't know why it's hard. I don't know why men find it hard. The ratios from males to females in terms of our conversion rates. I mean, I think we have over 880,000 suicides per year. I think they worked out to every 2 minutes a man would commit suicide. We've got over 7,000 just in the UK alone. And I don't know what it is. I don't know. I haven't put my finger on it. I think that's, look for shows like this, or look to this person, because if we knew, it wouldn't happen.
Yeah.
I think the most important thing is just discussion, is putting it out there. I think when people come out and they talk openly about it, like, oh, okay, I'm not a freak. I'm not a freak.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's not unique to me. That's right.
Yeah.
Like this, she feels like this. This superstar feels like this. This sports star feels like this. Okay, actually, I'm not that weird. So, okay, do you know what? I will unburden it. But it's like, I mean, my support work would be like my wife. I mean, not my family, but it'd be like maybe my wife. And what I found with some friends, and there was an important point. Sorry, I jumped in a conversation late, so I couldn't see who else was in the chat. But he made an important point about like friends, and the first guy that was speaking, and he was saying that he kind of learned who like his real friends were, and who, right, you're associates, but maybe not my close people. And I found that if I could have had a list of all my closest people, and I was going through stuff, I'd say 90% would come off that list as being people would consider I'd want to confide in, or I would consider as my, what's the word, my day one friends, for instance. And I've known people that have not been so close to me in terms of, yeah, let's go on holiday together, or yeah, let's go here, let's go to this club, let's do this. It's just been your people. I've literally found people on this journey that I didn't even know existed, and they've turned into like people that have saved my life, like in terms of being there, being able to talk to them. Like, how am I talking to them? Like, I've only known for 3 years compared to 20 years. And I don't know if it's to do with the burden that I lay on people, or if they've just been there at the right time. I don't know. But I've met some incredible people that come after I've got all of my, you know, I'm mid-30s now, and like, you would think that you cemented friends that you're going to have, and it's really a lesson that actually no. People that I can talk to, people I've known for 2 years more freely than I've known for 20 years. Yeah, 20 years. Comfortably about it. So my support network is a little bit all over in terms of what my structure should be in my life. My structure is my wife, my family, my in-law family, my in-law friends, my friends, like that. Actually, I found that my biggest support has come a little bit out of that, where which has helped me more. But yeah, it's mad. It's like, I don't know, like, this is the point. This is the point of this. Like, for me, I don't know where it starts and it ends. So for me, it's, I don't know why men do it, but it does happen. I've felt it. I've done it. I've tried to act it out. It's not quite happened for me. And for me, I would consider myself like in the safe zone. I said this before, like, I'm in that place where it's like, okay, I've been at that point, and now I think I'm on the mend. Maybe not. I might come back to a point at some point and maybe be shitty again. But I'm in the safe point where, like, now I want to start challenging, like, why men don't feel like they can say it, and that will come from, we have, you know, 500 people on this group chat, or we have 2 people, or we have 7 people, but get the conversation out there. Because it's crazy for us men. I don't know if we're going to touch on the women's side of things for suicide as well, but for me, it's just that it's such a silent killer for us as males. So
yeah,
it's just such a topic.
Yeah, you mentioned
there's a horrible stigma about this as well, that, you know, people feel that they cannot open up because of the way that we perceived in opening up, whether it be from a man's point of view or from a woman's point of view. Like I said earlier, 2 years ago, my niece, at 17 years old, committed suicide. And the worst thing about it is, and this is why I spoke to my kids so in depth about this, nobody saw it coming. Absolutely nobody saw it coming. And she lived in Croydon, and for whatever reason, she was walking down, and her school friends witnessed it. She's walking down an underpass where there was an intercity train going past, 120 miles an hour, stepped out in front of the train. And her friends witnessed that. My brother-in-law called me, and because I work as a paramedic, I just drove straight down there. We had to go and identify. Actually, there wasn't even nothing to identify. We just had her student card, and that was it. And, you know, when I spoke to my children about it, they couldn't deal with it because just a week before they were at a party in the park in Hyde Park with her. And, you know, they said there was nothing wrong with her. We couldn't see anything wrong with her. And this is why, like what you said, Jonathan, it's like a silent killer. And that's why I talk about the masquerade. You know what I mean? There's a smile, and we've got to look beyond the mask. You know what I mean? But we can only look beyond that as if people allow you to look beyond that. You know, we can all walk around and we all smile, and we smile with everybody. How you doing? I'm good, and blah, blah, blah. And I think that's where the dishonesty comes. If there's a problem, say it.
But
Right.
you know,
Problem to say it. You don't know who you're the company with who may be able to help you.
yeah.
You get what I'm saying?
But you know what I find?
Can I? Sorry. Can I just say, the councillor put his hand up a while ago to make a point.
Oh, sorry, Kwame.
Can we? Because we have got his professional expertise here for a reason. So can I let him make his point and then I'll come back to you guys?
Yeah.
Okay, and then Anthony, I want to hear from you as well. Sorry, Kwame, what did you want to say?
It was just so many different points. So I'll just put it out there and we'll pick up whatever kind of goes comes up for people. But going back to a little bit of what I think Jonathan was talking about in terms of mental health and what does it look like. And I think sometimes we kind of, maybe I missed a little bit, but we kind of dive into conversation. These days, there's a lot of conversation around mental health. And quite often it's like, what does it actually mean? What does mental health look like? And it's very important to put across that mental health is on a continuum, is from being well and kind of well-being to being mentally ill. And there is a very big bit in the middle as well, where people are kind of, let's say, existing and, you know, functioning, but they're not necessarily thriving. So we have to distinction that mental health is on a continuum, and there's many aspects that go into mental health as well. And then there can be, you know, the stuff around stress, which is, you know, situational stress, which might be, you know, finances, might be relationship, might be job. And then there is stuff around health, and then there's stuff around emotional injury / trauma. So sometimes there is stuff from the past and from, you know, from our childhood that gets compounded by our everyday stuff that makes our ability to deal with stress, to deal with pressure, kind of less, and then basically we become less resilient. Another point I want to make is that again, mental health has gained popularity in terms of becoming part of everyday conversation. But quite often as well, a lot of things, trauma has become very widely used now. And we have to be very careful what we mean by trauma. So trauma is very specific to the idea of feeling in threat of your life or feeling a sense of danger, that because not everything that's distressing or upsetting is necessarily traumatic. Trauma is that sense that you're kind of being literally in fear of your life or somebody else's life, and feeling as though that you can't, there's no escape, and you can't cope with it. So it was a very real precipice that you kind of go over. However, in general, we have trauma, we have anxiety, we have depression. These are all great labels that gives us and what we think is an idea of what a person is going through. But we should never assume that because someone says I'm depressed, that we know exactly what that means to them. So quite often we have to give the person a space or have a conversation to unpack that, to see what is it that you're actually going through? What is your story? So when someone's depressed, is that what are you depressed about? What are the feelings that are being repressed and are being held in? Because quite often the idea around depression is that something's been pushed down, something's been held in. So suppressed, repressed. So what needs to come out? What thoughts and feelings are been held in that needs to be aired, that needs to have that cathartic release. If someone's anxious, what they're anxious about? Because again, we hear a lot of anxiety now, but actually, what are you actually anxious about? Is it a sense of danger to yourself? Is it a sense of, you know, self-esteem, self-confidence, feeling exposed, imposter syndrome? There's so many facets to it. So I think we should, when we hear people using labels, we should always, if we have the time and opportunity, to really understand what is your story, what's behind the label. Also, another aspect of mental health as well is that quite often the idea is that people are just almost spontaneously unwell, and actually nobody wakes up one day being mentally unwell. There's a part, unless someone's had a brain injury, quite often there's like many flags or many bumps that somebody has gone through where they haven't actually listened to themselves, or people around them haven't picked up, and then you get to the point where they have like the straw that breaks the camel's back, maybe the day that someone becomes suicidal or actually takes their own life. But there would have been many days and weeks and months and different things happening that hasn't been either picked up or they haven't been able to be attuned within themselves over as well. So we have to also understand that, yeah, like that there is a lot of things that goes on in between before somebody gets to that point, or someone becomes mentally ill where they might even have to be sectioned. And there is so many, so it's very, very complex. And I think is what I'm trying to get to. And also, you spoke about support systems, and I think relationships are, we are social animals, so relationships are in a sense make or breakers. However, the other side of it as well is that we can have all the support system around us, but
it's so lonely.
It's how we use them. It's our internal kind of frame of reference or ideas around sharing, around being vulnerable, around shame. So if you might have guy friends, but then if you get dumped, that might bring up so much shame that you can't even bring yourself to talk about it, to really say how you feel. For a guy, if your sense of self is wrapped up in your work and you become redundant or you're unemployed, again, that brings up so much shame. And if you've got culture around gender roles and masculinity and your sense of self is through your work or how much you're earning, and you can't do that anymore, again, that might bring up so much shame that even though you've got people who understand and talk and they'll be there for you, you yourself can't let yourself out. So it's very important that that aspect of it as well, in terms of how people's relationship with their emotions is nurtured over time, because like if you as a boy, if you've gone through teenage years, got to your early 20s, and that relationship with your emotions hasn't been nurtured, when you have a massive stressor in your life, what almost like what has been a groundwork for you then to have that conversation, or the ability to really be in touch with your emotion, to say, this is what's going on for me, this is why I'm feeling what I'm feeling, this is how I need your support to help me with this. If that skill has been practiced over 10, 15, 20 years, and then a massive life stress event, whether it be bereavement, whether it be kind of relationships, you almost like there's no emotional muscle that has been built up for you to then be able to exercise it.
Right.
So part of it as well is unfortunately, I'm not how boys, let's say how men are emotionally socialized. So, and it's also is what do they grow up seeing, what is familiar to them. A lot of it as well is about role modeling. What have they seen in front of them? How have they seen relationships work? How have they seen the either fathers or uncles or male figures carry themselves, managing their emotions, expressing their emotions, dealing with conflict. So a lot of it is what we internalize, and then we kind of draw that when we either have a crisis or some sort of stress. So that's what makes a lot of these things complex as well. I'll leave it there. Also, sorry, and one last point as well.
Yeah.
Is that phrase about asking people, are you okay? And that question is a powerful question, but also I found that if you ask that question, also it's like, are you ready to hear the answer?
Right.
Are you ready to hear the answer? And quite often it's like, depending on what people are going through, they may not be ready to hear the answer. So they like, so they want to either they want to ask that question, or they'll ask a question in a way that's very closed. So when someone's got ask a closed question versus when someone's really, really open to hearing what you have to say and share with them.
Yeah.
So.
Do the guys in this chat today, do you feel that you've got that support network now where you could openly and honestly say, this is how I'm feeling? I mean, for all of you where you felt like suicidal, I don't know, Michael, have you ever felt that way? Suicidal?
No, I haven't. No.
You said no, but I know Anthony and Jonathan. So when was the last time that was kind of for you? How long ago was that for you, Anthony?
nearly 8 years ago. And it's funny because...
Oh, you've gone all robot-y. Your internet's shaky. Sorry, say that again. Yeah.
Oh, no. I can see you guys clearly. Can you hear me? All right.
Oh gosh.
Can you hear it?
Hello.
That sounds.
Okay. I don't know what's happened, but you've gone.
If it's like I see you guys clearly,
Oh, you've gone RoboCop on us.
Yeah. All right, let's jump to Jonathan whilst you sort that out, Anthony. Jonathan, how long ago was those feelings for you?
I think the last time where I felt, I don't know what the best word for it, terrible, doing something, I think it was last New Year's Day, I think.
Really?
Just gone? 2020, 2021 or 2020s?
2020.
Okay.
Yeah, not 17 days ago.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it was. Yeah, it was definitely. It was New Year's Day. Yeah, some stuff had gone on. There's been some ramifications from like. I don't know if it was mental health has caused it. Mental health has been made worse by it. I made some mistakes basically as a male, and I think having that on top of what mistakes I've made at that time, family perspective, I don't know if it's heightened it, if it's made it worse, but yeah, last New Year's Day it was, and yeah, that was the bridge, and I remember it so like vividly, but yeah, that was probably the last time that I felt in a sense of not in control, but I obviously was in control because I don't know if I wasn't brave enough to do something about it, or if I wasn't actually ready, or some vision came from up above. I don't know, but it didn't happen. Basically, something came, and then ever since then, I've just kicked on. I've just kicked on from that. I've like, I don't know what to call it. I don't know how to call it strength. I don't know how to call it. I don't know what it is, but I've kicked from there, and yeah, I've kind of gone from strength to strength from that point. I've had shit days, but I think we've got things like COVID come in. We've like, and the the ramifications of COVID for business,
done a number on people's.
Yeah, people. Yeah, because when I have spoken to people, they've all tried to identify like where it's come from. And I've had counselling as well. I've had counselling for quite a while, actually. And
that was going to be my next question.
Yeah, I'll just finish off, and then you can kind of come in with that question if you've got a specific one. But yeah, I think maybe ask that question actually, because then I can maybe power on from that.
No, that was just it. Like, have you gone to therapy? I know Michael said he has. Anthony, have you?
Yeah, I had therapy. I
remember Anthony saying he has.
Your mum died, didn't it?
Yeah.
Okay. So how I know I've spent years in therapy after the died. How did you find that experience, did you guys? How was that?
I've had therapy twice. My dad died when I was 13. I was going into, and it was a very sudden death. It was like, and I think the thing that made it harder with me and my old man is I think love for your parents is unconditional, because and my mum, they weren't together, and he had a drinking problem, and he sort of was out and in and out and in. But I think as a child, I think even as an adult, not even though as a child, I think at any age, I think your love for your parent is unconditional. You just want the love from them. You want the hugs, and you want the guidance, and you want this. And I think my mum spent, so many years being mum and dad.
Right.
And it's a fantastic job that she's done. And I always commended her on all of my special occasions in life, from my wedding, birthdays to this. And she's done a great job. But, you need your dad, or vice versa, your mum. And so I had therapy after that. I had therapy after he died, and I didn't cry. Well, I never cried actually, even through therapy. My mum thought it'd be a good idea because I was showing signs. You know, I was at the funeral and I was just very stone-faced. And I don't know if that I was angry at him or I was this or I was that, but I never showed any emotion. I didn't cry for my dad until I was about 18 years old, which was what, maybe 6 years, just years after he died. And I don't know what I was doing. Don't quote me on this. I may have been, no, that's it. Yeah. So I was in a pub. Yeah, in a pub with a girl that I was seeing at the time, and I heard a song that reminded me of him. Yeah, I was in Hampstead, and I just literally broke the fuck down. I was in the pub, and I was like, I just started crying, and she literally thought I was like dying or something. I don't know what she must have thought, but I was in such a bad way. I had counselling up in that point, and they didn't spot nothing. They just saw as well, there was never an evaluation, but I find that because it sounds quite bad, but I think because it was my mum didn't obviously have the money for me to see someone privately at the time, so I kind of got what I was given. And I think very chess, I think you can have someone that's absolutely incredible that really wants to do the job, and you may get someone that's doing the job because they have to do the job. It was one of the statistics that I got someone that just wanted to do the job, because I never got anything from that. And they didn't identify a young male, 12, 13 years old, that has obviously got issues with it. And it kind of came to the end. And what I find with the NHS is that, just like we were saying before, that it was kind of, you got to your end session and then that was it. It was kind of the guillotine out for that. And then I just sort of had to continue life from 13 years old through high school. I pretty much I had to find a job. I had to, you know, learn how to treat a woman myself. I had to learn how to drink a beer on my own, to do a lot of stuff, my first things on my own. And I kind of, and it worked for me. It worked for me. I built up this intolerance of just being tough and strong and man of the house. Like, I can do this and that. And then it just capitulated. And then obviously I've had a second round of, you know, I've gone on to get married and be really happy and have children and do this and, you know, start businesses and, you know, be on top of the world. And then, I had a second wave of capitulation. I don't know if it was midlife crisis, maybe too young to have a midlife crisis part 2. I don't know, but I had a former crisis, and I had a second wave of sort of counselling. It was good. And then, got me lockdown, everyone, like lockdown. I mean, I think no one was ready for that. Do you know what I mean? I don't know if I came to the end of what I should have had. I think it kind of was a bit cut short. But that's kind of where I'm at with the counselling. So I have gone through it. I've had it. I've received it. It did help. I'm still here talking to you guys in your show today.
Oh, God.
5 years in your show. I think there's just things that come back in. But
okay. And hand up, and then we'll go around. We'll wrap up soon because we've done an hour.
Can you guys hear me properly now?
Yeah.
That's good. Well, firstly, you know what? The good thing is that we're all talking about mental health now. So we're definitely helping each other. We're learning also from ourselves. We're definitely helping somebody out there, because a lot of people don't know how to, you know, to reach out. And also one thing also that I noticed when my mum passed was that sometimes people don't know how to ask people for help. You know, people don't know how to deal with people that are going through mental health issues, you know. And a prime example was a friend of mine, a very good friend. I consider him as a brother, you know, to me. When my mum died, he hardly called me or done anything for a very long time, until when the funeral, you know, Africans, we have this, do the burial, and then we'll have like a funeral where everybody dresses up and come to this this event. And that's when he kind of like showed up, and he was very supportive and everything. And I thought to myself, why didn't I hear from him before that? Until a mutual friend of ours, mother died. And then so I phoned him one day and I said, oh, so-and-so's mum's passed away. And then he just freaked out. You know, he was like, oh, what should I do? Do you think I should phone her? Or, you know, like he really didn't know
Yeah,
how
you
to
don't
do
know
it.
what to do. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it made me think, so he probably felt like that when my mum passed away. That's why he couldn't reach out to me. And it started making me think that sometimes people don't really, especially if you've never experienced anything like that before, you know, you just don't know how to help, or, you know, somebody else, you know. So that's also something that could be looked at, because, you know, when it goes to counseling, after probably, I said the 8th session, I knew that I didn't need to go and see the person again. But really, after the second session, you know, I was talking to this girl, and, you know, I remember she just looked at her time like, okay, you ready? You ready? You know, and then it made me feel like, keep going. But then, you know, but I still kept on going, you know, because I got what I wanted out of it. And she obviously, you know, she got paid for her work, you know, so we all something out of it. So, but I think the thing is reaching out and talking, you know, because not everybody will understand what you're going through, you know.
Will know how to do it. Although I've gone through, like, my dad died. First my brother died, 2003, and then 6 months after that my dad died, and then we fast forward 6 years later, then my two remaining siblings passed away within 6 months of each other. And even though I've been through all of that grief, I still don't know what to say to people when their mum dies.
When they pass, yeah.
So yeah, I totally hear that. Kwame, you stuck your hand up, and then I'll jump to Michael. Go for it.
Yeah, I did. Just to touch on what you said now about not knowing what to say. I think we can all be kind of struck by that, where you feel like there's nothing I can say to ease someone's pain, or and I think it's just more about acknowledging the person's experience, rather than feeling as though you have to say something profound that will take away the pain.
Yeah.
And I think so that's what I would say to that. But also these days, internet is good and bad for many reasons, but actually there's so much information out there these days. So if someone's has experienced a loss, there is great information out there in terms of what you can do to support someone going through a bereavement, what we can do with someone whose family member has committed suicide, someone who's died from cancer. So I would say is use the resources available to you to give you an insight in terms of, okay, if I've got a loved one going through something, what's the best way to support them? If you're not sure, literally these days Google it, and there'll be like a charity, there'll be an organization, there'll be a support group that can give you some information that will hopefully not make you feel so helpless.
Yeah.
I think
Can I ask you one quick question? So a friend of mine, a good friend of mine, mother just passed away just last Sunday. Just last Sunday gone. And so a couple of days ago I was speaking to her. She's on the phone crying her head out, just totally lost. And so obviously I've also lost my mum, so I can relate with her, and I understand the kind of pain she's going through. However, it took me about probably, I'll say 2 to 3 years to kind of like to be able to get to the stage where I don't break down anymore, cry or whatever. You know, it takes really special occasions where a tear will come, and, you know, I'll let it out when I feel like it. Now, do I tell her, listen, mate, you're going to find it hard for the next 2-3 years or something like that? I don't know how to approach, you know what I mean? Because I don't want to, you know, give her that kind of like, oh my God, is it going to take me that long, you know, to deal with this or not? Because we all deal with grief, but differently, you know. When my mum died, I used to enjoy going to the cemetery to talk to the grave. You know, for me, it was like a good healer thing. While somebody else that I met, they just didn't want to go to the cemetery at all. It's not that we both don't care about parents and whatever, but it's just, that's how she dealt with it. That's, you know, I dealt with it this way. So how do you think I should go about telling my friend or trying to console her to say that in the end, you know, she will be okay, you know, because right now she just doesn't see at all.
As a therapist, I hate giving advice, direct advice.
Okay.
So I mean, but what I can say is that all you can do is use your experience to comfort her, not to say that it will be the same as me, but to say I can I can empathize with your pain in terms of what, and maybe share a bit about the impact it had on you, that this is how it impacted you in these particular ways. But ultimately it's being there with her, being there for her. And if she asks you questions about your experience, then maybe that's when you can personalize and say, this is what I went through. But for now, it's more to say that
I'm here to listen.
I'm here to listen. I'm here for you. I appreciate that. It's an incredible. It's very, very painful. And always says that I can't imagine what it's like for you right now. But all that I want you to know is that I'm here for you. So wherever you need. And so it's offer that space and offer that opportunity that as and when she needs you to be there to listen, to offload, you're there for them.
Yeah. I think it's important as well, because at the time of death, everyone kind of rallies around and you get the phone calls and everyone's supportive then. But 6 months to a year down the line is when it goes quiet. And that's when you do need that person to talk to. So it's being there as a constant.
Sorry, and I think you said about your time frame, about 2-3 years. And I think it's important to say that everyone's process for grief is different.
Yeah.
Everyone's process for grief is different, and also so it's good to say, it's good not to say it will take you this long. It's just really to say that it will take a while.
Time will heal, I guess. One question for you, Kwame, that's come through. Have you seen an increase in mental health referrals since
lockdown? Everyone self-refers, but definitely there's been, to be honest with you, at the beginning of the lockdown in terms of March, it wasn't a significant difference. The jump went up after George Floyd.
Okay.
So that was the significant, that was a massive catalyst for more Black clients coming forward.
Right.
Yeah, and lockdown over time has been a catalyst, but it hasn't been a primary reason for people seeking therapy.
We experienced that in I work as a paramedic. We experienced that the same thing. The amount of calls we had just after, in and around the George Floyd situation. Again, especially amongst Black people, there was a marked spike with the amount of calls that we had with people that for no medical reason, but just couldn't cope with it mentally.
I guess a lot more people are reaching out now, because our parents' generation kept everything quiet, they wouldn't say nothing, but our generation, we ain't standing for it. And the next generation also ain't going to stand for anything like that, So I think that's one of the reasons why people probably just, I'm not flipping shutting up because of this.
I think a lot of people have been in acclimatizing, assimilating. A lot of racial aggression and microaggressions and macroaggressions had been swallowed over many years, and so I think George Floyd was just almost like a straw that broke camel's back, and a lot of people that had not necessarily taken time to process the racial experiences over years. That was when it kind of brought up in the face that actually I've been through a lot myself, and now, and I need to deal with this. So it almost kind of
just brought everything to the head.
Just brought it to the surface. So I think that was, and then COVID as well, obviously over time, the stress of it in different ways, the mental fatigue of lockdown. Obviously we can't forget that over 100,000 people have lost their lives. A lot of Black people included in that, in those statistics. A lot of people have unresolved trauma, unresolved grief, based on that, because when you lose a loved one during this particular moment in time, you can't do what you normally do. If you're kind of African, you can't do the rituals that you normally do around that. If you're Caribbean, particularly if you're Jamaican, obviously you can't do the prime nights and stuff like that, maybe in the same way. So a lot of grieving has been stunted as well because of COVID. A lot of people have lost friends and family, or particularly friends that they can't necessarily go to the funerals in the same way and process that experience as well. So there's a lot of that as well, building up for many people. And sorry to touch on something as well that I think, and Anthony said indirectly around conversations around mental health. Another aspect of it that I want to put out there as well is that in becoming more comfortable talking about mental health within like, let's say, the Black community, we also have to be careful how we almost label and pathologize emotions, because not every kind of emotional expression or it's necessarily a mental health issue. Is that actually is it relevant to the context of the situation? So if you've had a bereavement and you're going through intense grief and mourning, and some people might say, are you now becoming depressed? No, you're grieving. That's not a mental health
issue. Not a mental health issue, yeah.
So similarly, if you're going through a bout of anxiety, actually, what is the context of that? Is it in relation to what you're about to, let's say you're about to build up for a bit a job or something's happening in your life. So therefore, is the expression of emotion in the context of that experience, is it kind of in keeping? If it's in keeping, then actually that's not a mental health issue. It's just a thing of emotions being expressed around that time. That's all I'm saying.
Okay, go for it, Jonathan.
No, I was going to say that just back to what he was saying is that I think we can look at maybe what it is, and if it is a trauma related incident, or if it's stress, or if it's this, or if it's this. But I think the big moral of this chat, and I think the wider chat, is just talking. So let's talk about it and then be able to identify it, what it is, rather than not talk about it at all, and then it becomes something that knows about, whether that's someone that's then committed suicide on the back of them feelings, or has this or has done this. So I think we just need to chat, we just need to talk. So, you know, if you are grieving just about a loss, what you were saying, then say, I'm just feeling shit, I'm feeling terrible, I feel this way, and then talk. And that's the problem. I think that this chat is about men talking. It's just talking, it's just getting out there, just getting it off your chest, whether you're chatting to Cheryl, or whether you're chatting to Michael, whether you're chatting to this person, just get it off your chest. And then let's have a chat about, once you've talked, what it is. Because the problem is that, you know, we don't know why people are killing themselves. Are they killing themselves because they're grieving about their parents, or they're grieving about their dad died, or they're grieving about they lost their job, or are they grieving girlfriends left them? Are they grieving because they just don't efficient?
Because it seems like
that's it. It's a thought.
Yeah, it seems like a drastic jump to that, and like you mentioned, like 800,000. Did you say?
I don't know the exact statistic. I think it's 811,000, something like that.
Right. Wow. And then when we was looking at our statistics earlier, it was saying that white men tend to have suicidal thoughts, whereas black men tend to carry out the act. So I'd be interested to know, out of that number, exactly how much is much. You know, what is what.
You know what? I think when I was looking at this, I think statistics are good to look at to bring the realness about a conversation. When you can actually look at it and be like, oh my God, like a man commits 2 minutes. Counts 2 minutes, someone's dead. Yes. In this conversation now, I think maybe 50 minutes. And in them 50 minutes, maybe 10 people died from us talking just because of that. So statistics are good. And I would be able to see that, because I think what statistics do, I mean, you know, they're just numbers at the end of the day. But I think with such a we've got statistics of, you know, heart disease, there's nothing we can do about it. Maybe but I think with something that's psychological, I think if we can break it down, as in, right, this number is this and this number is this, we can actually then target that. So, and that was my point to you, Nat, when I spoke offline about this subject, and I said that I think that the what's the word? The thoughts on it are, I think the stigma is that it is the white man that, you know, your Daves in your bedrooms that has nothing to live for, and he drinks himself to death, and, you know, or he comes off the bridge. And again, I have to point out, this isn't about colour. It's not about colour. This is a area problem within men. It doesn't matter if you're Chinese, you're black, white, or you're anything. Like, this is a problem with men. So we need to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you. It's definitely a problem within men, but I'm not trying to make it about colour. But if there is a huge amount of black men that take up that number, that's, as a black woman, that's something I'm like,
well, yeah, do you know me? That's the first time I've ever heard that statistic. So
yeah, that came from mental health, the mentalhealth.org.uk. So I'm not saying that everything they say is gospel, but it is.
I think one of the things is how do we identify, how does mental health manifest itself in different cultures?
Absolutely, yeah.
Whereas, you know, one thing I learned is even when I do with kids at school, you know, because of the way we are as black people, we may kiss our teeth because we're vexed. That's seen as an aggression. For us, that's an expression of our feeling, but to other people, it's seen as an aggression. You get what I'm saying? And, you know, whereas I think what Jonathan was saying was, you know, it would then be seen as, you know, the white man will go in his room, drink himself to death and all the rest of it. How does that, so what's the parallel with a black person?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I'm conscious that we've kept Kwame for an hour and a half. So yeah, that's a whole nother conversation. You're right with us, Kwame.
Yeah.
You're cool. We have definitely got loads of comments that I probably can't go through now without stalling the show. But no, you're right, Jonathan. It's not as if I'm trying to say that black mental health is more important than white mental health. I'm not. But if the statistics are showing that our males are killing themselves more, I want to know why that is. And like you said, Michael, it could be the way that we are culturally dealing with
it. The way, I think the way the men manifest it, I think there's definitely a difference within the cultures, even within black culture. Even within the black community, there are many cultures. Yeah. So there are even be differences in those different cultures to how they deal with things. And I do think there is a different way that the different cultures kind of manifest if they are dealing with certain things. There's a different way that they would than white. I think that's where the...
You've muted yourself, Nat.
Just to throw something else into the mix as well is that
they're not always fairly diagnosed. So whereas there seems to be sometimes more empathy with other races, there seems to be like a harsher kind of diagnosis and solution sometimes when it comes to black men. And that goes back to where sometimes I think they're kind of dehumanized with certain things, and people just think we're tough all the time. So, you know, we can take it, whereas other people can't.
As well as men,
women as well as men.
In my experience as a medic, one of the things that I look at in terms of what we're called out to is that you tend to find, and I'd be interested that I will go and try and find out the stats on that, is that you tend to find white people tend to more self-harm, and as a result of that, then progress onto suicide, whereas black people tend to either outright suicide in terms of, you know, jumping off a bridge, or you get what I'm saying, something a lot more drastic. And these are that seem to be very apparent between the different cultures. Now, I'm not saying that black people don't self-harm.
Yeah, we do.
We do, but sometimes it's what becomes more apparent between cultures, you know.
And sorry, if you think about it, if we're talking about a subject of mental health, and when this subject is brought to the forefront, you're never seeing anyone that looks like you speak about it openly or represented in that area. You're not going to feel safe. You're going to disassociate it with yourself. And you're not going to feel safe to kind of talk about that, because whenever you see it represented publicly or out there, it's not you. It's not anyone that looks like you. Like, this is not our portion. We don't do that. No, we do. It's that kind of thing. So if you don't see it, it's harder for you to then say, you know, you might have heard things back in the day. If someone says something and they'll be like, are you white? and it's not a case of, as Jonathan said, it's not a case of being black or being white. This is a humanitarian thing, but it's kind of opening that and making it a safer space for Black men to be able to kind of manage those feelings and those motions and those issues that they're dealing with, so that it doesn't lead to the wider problem, and that it's dealt with at an earlier stage, or identified at an earlier stage, where they can get the help that they kind of need and the right support system.
All right, I've got a question, then I'm going to jump to Kwame, then I'm going to come to you. Yeah, so Jonathan, so question come through: are white people more likely to seek help, whereas Black people may not, and then wait until they're sectioned? So I guess that's a question for all of you. Well, the medics and Kwame, what do you think about that question?
So, as a question again, are white people
more likely to seek help, or is it that Black people wait and then until breakdown and are sectioned? Is that a fact, or is that?
As far as again, I'm not on the gospel. As far as I'm aware, Black people tend to seek intervention late.
Right.
Or they're referred for intervention late. Either referred late or they're sectioned. So
absolutely.
So that tends to be in terms of, let's say,
Michael.
Yeah. So let's say when Black people, let's say, go to the GPs or so forth, I know in the past they were less likely to be offered talking therapy as a solution, or as a potential solution. So these are some of the things that then build up that down the line as well.
I wonder if it's because we like I was saying earlier, I know that when I said to my mum I was going to go counselling, she was like, why? It's just like, so I wonder if it's because we tend to decline it, so we're not offered. I'm not sure. Jonathan, what was you going to say?
I was going to say, do you know what? Nat hit the she hit the nail on the head in terms of what she was saying about there isn't a poster. There's not a poster for mental health. There isn't a society or person that we look to is just like, yeah, right, that's the picture for mental health. And I was just going to basically say, yeah, you've hit the nail on the head there. And I think also, just from a couple more points that I've heard as well, in terms of Black people waiting later, do you think that's because of how it's marketed in the media?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah. You know, when you've got the stigma of, if you know, mental health as deemed as you're going crazy, you know what I mean? And you know that you're suffering with, you're now the down and out of society because mentally there's something wrong with you. Who owns up to that? You know, no one's gonna take on that. And it starts to eradicate all your coping mechanisms and any kind of help that may be available to you. I second absolutely what Kwame says in terms of you know, that Black people tend to go for help very late. Where, you know, again, whether it's a cultural thing, I don't know. But again, in my experience as a medic, a lot of the situations that we get called out to are very extreme, especially when it comes to Black people, are extreme cases, because it's stuff that's been built up over time and it's been kind of ignored. Oh, you'll be all right. It's just, you know, you're probably just a bit anxious and, you know, you'll be okay.
Brushed off.
They're more likely to medicate, to suppress, than to offer them, like I said, spoken counselling. I work between Bedford and L&D and Milton Keynes hospitals. And just before Christmas, there was one we see a regular. And I was coming on shift, and I remember coming down one side of the M1, and it was the northbound side was completely cut off. And there was a woman standing, the same woman standing on the outside lane of the motorway, self-harming, the same Black woman. And I thought, well, why did it have to get to that point for her to be heard? Why did it have to get to that? She literally walked out of a psychiatric unit in the L&D hospital up onto a motorway. Why did it have to get to that point? You know what I mean? So that's why I said I believe that, you know, within Black people, it has to be gone to the absolute extreme before they're offered any type of intervention, or they'd rather be sectioned. But there's still no intervention or no counselling. They'll be sectioned, medicated, and put aside.
It's very clinical and not there needs to be some kind of, I feel, especially working in this sector with Trish alone, there needs to be some kind of empathy when working in this field, some kind of empathetic feeling, and not just clinical. You're dealing with different people with different range of emotions and feelings, and sometimes they're just, as you say, they're just statistics, and so people are not always getting the help that they need.
Yeah, the
And going back to it,
not there.
going back to it being cultural, I mean, I was offered counselling, and I'm a female, a long time ago, years ago when I was young, and I was like, no. It was like when I was offered it, I was offended, and that's how I saw it. And to the point where now that I know, this is like 20 years later or 18 years later, that I know that there's nothing wrong with it, I still struggle to think about going to do it. And I've only recently kind of looked into it properly 18 years later, but still very hesitant.
But
Because
is that the stigma? Is that because of the stigma that's based around it?
well, I was young when
What's
I was offered it, and I think it is the stigma. And I just thought, I'm not mad. That's the immediate reaction I had when I was offered the counselling, first of all, because of something that happened, and I thought, no. And I was contacted many times to kind of get that counselling, and I didn't. And to be fair, I would suggest it, because now I don't know if that's out of thingy of that, but sometimes people say I'm emotionally constipated. I know Trisha says it to me sometimes. That I'm emotionally, I don't know how to, I can articulate joke, I can articulate talking, but I really struggle to articulate anything that's emotionally challenging for me. So, and some people, again, people say you're such a man, so they automatically relate that to machoism.
Yeah.
If that, just because I don't like, just because I'm not emotional, I'm really not. I'm emotional inside, but it never comes out.
I'll stay there 1 minute now.
Yeah.
He's got to go, so we're just going to say bye to Michael. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.
And we'll see you at the next No Bravado, yeah?
Yeah.
Thank you for your input. It's been brilliant.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Have a good night, yeah?
Good night.
Thanks, Michael.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So when I'm often challenged on it all now, because, like, again, I'm quite a, Trisha says I've got a poker face. What do you call me? Like a poker face? Impeccable poker face. I feel everything, but I show nothing. But again, people say you're such a dude, you're such a man, just because of that. So it's immediately associated with suppressing your feelings, is associated with kind of male bravado and machoism.
And that's something that, let's say, in therapy will be something that, if you're working with like a therapist, kind of medium to long term, that will be something that will be, let's say, one of the things to potentially unpack in terms of that way of being. It sounds like something that you've adopted over time, or you've
coping mechanism.
Yeah, so, I just get on with it.
Yeah. So the question will be is, how does it serve you, or the reason you adopted that, how does it serve you, and also do you still need it? So you might have needed to have that way of doing things for a particular point in your life. Quite often is that a lot of these strategies are situational dependent, but then they become the one way of doing it thereafter. So that's when it serves a purpose, but then it kind of becomes redundant, but we still hold on to it. Then,
absolutely.
Yeah. So that's something that. But to go back to the conversation around suicide as well, slightly, hopefully you don't mind, but what I want to put out there as well is that on one hand, there is an aspect of emotional arrested development. Let's say I'm broadly generalizing in men.
Yeah.
At the same time, we are exposed to more chronic stress. So you have a double whammy effect of very low capacity to deal with emotional stress. However, the life you're living throws more stress, chronic stress on top of you. So in a sense, it's almost like that creates a real what's the word? But it kind of it creates a real situation where it's like something has to break or something has to give, and quite often it's like it's the person that breaks, because on one hand you're dealing with racial, kind of basically generalizing, but Black people deal with more racialized stress in this country. Being a Black male, you deal with a certain amount of racialized stress,
right,
and discrimination and disproportionality. So you've got all these factors on one side loaded against the fact that in your upbringing and your socialization, there might have been very very unhealthy maybe lessons and messages learned around emotions and emotional regulation, how to manage it. So when you get this clash, it can only almost like lead to only one outcome to some extent.
right, yeah. Wow, yeah.
Wow.
So it does make sense.
Yeah,
definitely.
100%.
Definitely, absolutely. I think there's a lot of pressure for men. There is a lot of pressure for men in general. There's a lot of pressure for a man to be a lot of things, and that alone, I think, is stressful, can be very stressful.
And also depending on people's upbringing in terms of social environment. We talk about there's so many factors that people need to thrive, which it tends to be, let's say, a stable environment in the home, socially, in the community, relationships, ideally parents, and a love and stable, consistent family. So there's so many factors, and quite often when you look at it in particularly vulnerable communities, they lack a lot of the factors that they need to thrive. So and when you don't have that as children as well, if there isn't like a lot of stability and consistency, and a sense of safety, if you're always hyper vigilant, that also leads to people acting out. It's almost like, I'm going to get somebody before they get me. That's someone that's somebody who's hyper vigilant. I don't want to use the word PTSD, because sometimes PTSD gets thrown out there too much as well. But if you're still in a very toxic environment, that's not PTSD. That's traumatic stress. PTSD is when you come out of the situation and you're still in fear of your safety, or you feel you're still in fear that something might happen to you. Right. But actually, quite often people are living in chronic toxic stress. So people's ability to regulate and to deal and manage is compromised anyway. And particularly when you are young and teenager, you're going through puberty. That's a massive kind of confluence of because you're going through a massive growth spurt. So you're going through puberty with everything that's thrown at you. Right. You're dealing with socialization of trying to become your own person, and identity and so forth. And then you've got all the ish that life thrown at you. You might have undealt with trauma and adverse childhood experiences. So you have all these things that are happening at the same time. And the younger you are and the more intense these experiences, you have less maturity to even start to deal with it. That's when more often than not, that's when you do need your support system, and you need the healthy adults and healthy relationships around you to help you to navigate these experiences. And if you don't have that, then that's even more for double triple whammy as well.
Yeah.
So there's all these things as well.
Yeah.
Jonathan, you put your hand up a couple of times, and I want to see if you've got anything to say, Anthony, before we wrap up.
No, I just wanted to ask Kwame a question, actually.
Yeah.
So yes, you see, when you were talking about, I've just got a question about sweeping feelings under the carpet.
Yeah.
I don't know if my question is, does it work? Because what I found just for me, and I'm not speaking, I'm not generalizing now like we was earlier about stuff. This is just a personal question. But I find that like when I sweep stuff under the carpet, I've been doing it for so long.
Yeah.
And it seems successful. Yeah, it seems successful. Yeah. But I think that so for instance now, I think a couple of my triggers for the mind frame to go a little bit wayward, work was a massive element for that. I feel that I've always been quite successful. So whether I've been in a business and I've gone through and got to quite high points in that business, and I've always felt quite confident in my field. When you're in a workplace where you're really valued and appreciated and getting promotions and stuff, I think you just have an air of feel good, an air of like a bit of invincibility in that work. And I took that to doing it myself, and then it went on from leaps and bounds. And when that kind of, not, I wouldn't like to say the word collapse, but there was two major points where it kind of it went
south.
Yeah, I can't find the right word. It basically just went shit. Just to put it frank, it just went shit, and it just kind of down spiraled where I wasn't at that top point myself anymore. And I think that was a major trigger. It was a start for a whole heap of events that kind of went after that. But I've suppressed feelings for so long. I've done the whole sweeping thing. So I don't know if it's a case where it was just that incident and a few other incidences after that's made me feel like not being able to cope at a point of time, or if it's the case where I've always just put everything under the carpet. And that has helped. And that is the question I've always wanted to know about suppressing it and putting it under the carpet.
Yeah, it's okay. I mean, I'll kind of cut to the chase. So if you suppress and deny it, it might work in the short term. But if you were to say, you know what, I don't have the capacity to deal with it right now, so I'm gonna push it to the side, but then I'm gonna come back to it next week. Then you're dealing with it. But if you never come back to it, and then you sweep more and you sweep more and you sweep more and you sweep more, where does it all go?
Yeah.
So visually,
there's going to be a breaking point, isn't
exactly.
there?
So visually, you know, like that kind of, you see in films where someone kind of pushes everything into a wardrobe, and then they're literally having to force a wardrobe shut, and then it's like you can't open it because basically it's too much in there. So if you keep sweeping things under the carpet, like pushing it into a cupboard, and you never deal with it, it just becomes one mess of stuff. So even that sometimes feels as though I don't have that can build up a fear of even addressing anything, because it feels like everything just feels like one ball of mess, and therefore you kind of need time to then pull the thread and unpack things bit by bit. But ultimately, is like if you push things under the carpet, if you deny and you suppress, repress, and you never deal with it, then it has to go somewhere and it has to come out somehow. So it's either
it will come out at some point.
It will come out at some point. So it might be a blowout. It might be something where, you know, people think that, oh, that person, you know when people fly off into a rage, and it's like it seems out of context with that situation. And you like, well, everyone's like, what the hell was that about? It wasn't that. It was that plus all the other things that has been built up, has been pent up. So that was the again the straw that broke coming back to create a release. So what I'll say is that whatever we do as a way of coping with our emotions is never good or bad. It's all about context. So you can, if you do it for the right reason, for the right time, because sometimes you do need to suppress, because actually it's a good thing to suppress sometimes. But the whole thing is what you do after that point. You got to suppress it. And so hopefully it answers the question. Right? But also we can get into
it does be fair,
and that's the thing as well, is that quite often we get into habits of using the same tool for every problem.
You said that earlier, that sometimes you might pick up a coping mechanism and it works for that time, but it might not necessarily serve you in the future. But because you've gotten used to that particular coping mechanism because it worked, it doesn't necessarily mean it's the best thing for you to grow. If that makes sense.
So in therapy, it's never to say don't ever do that again, but it's almost like what can you add so you have more flexibility, so that actually you can respond appropriately, depending on the situation. So sometimes you then might still use you still might use the old coping mechanism, but it was appropriate to a particular situation. But the whole point is to add more variation, so that you're more flexible in how you deal with things, not just the one way for everything.
Yeah.
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 Okay.
So, anyone got any closing comments? Anthony, is there anything you want to say to close?
I think, yeah, I was just going to say that I think sometimes men, we kind of like live beyond our means, you know, because of society, how society is brought, you know, generalized as, you know, like the man must be the breadwinner, must do this, must do that. So that's a lot of pressure that we bring on ourselves, you know, especially if you cannot do some of those things, which,
Yeah.
you know, and a lot of women expect the man to do these kind of things here. So I think that there's a lot more pressure on men, you know, and what some men like myself just need to just open up and say, listen, you know, I can't do this today, you know, or like maybe we can go halves here, you know, or something, you know. Just keep it real. You know? If you can go out for dinner, you ain't got enough money to, you know, buy all this stuff, and the next week you're gonna be broke. Just say, listen, you know, maybe you need to help me out here because next week I'm gonna be broke.
Yeah, it is about being real, absolutely.
Yeah, definitely.
And if she says, boy, whatever, then you know that's not the right girl for you.
That's not the one. Yeah,
you know, so,
definitely.
I don't know. I think that's what it is sometimes. As men, we kind of like we build ourselves up and we just have to do everything. So sometimes it could just be a lot of pressure, you know, and that could all, you know, if you can't fulfill those kind of things that are meant to be simple things in life, then that could
yeah,
mentally also.
I get that.
Sorry, just to close. I think a lot of sometimes the difficulty and the apprehension with kind of tackling the issues that you may be facing, or mental health issues, or going to counselling as well, maybe all the self-work that you have to do. It's a big number that you have to do kind of on yourself. There's a lot of unpacking to do, and you can't cheat it. You know, you can't cheat and kind of take the shortcut. You've really got to get into it, and you know, go to places that you might not necessarily want to go to. And I think everyone deep down kind of knows that, and sometimes you're just not ready to do that.
Yeah.
Especially a lot of men. So all of that unpacking and unearthing and opening up and kind of being vulnerable and doing that kind of self-work that you can't cheat, there's no kind of shortcut to it, can sometimes make you think, I can't do that right now. Until I can't do that right now, just goes on till I can't do that right now, I can't do that right now, and then it never gets done until something happens.
And just quickly add to that, I think that's the real crucial part of it, is that beyond, like, compared to the NHS, let's say, medical model, where it's like treatment, diagnosis and treatment, whereas almost almost impersonal therapy, you are the center of it, you have to drive it. And also for more than vulnerability, you also have to be ready to contact that shame, which is a shame of maybe feeling as though you are not whatever you have in your mind, that I am not man enough, I am not I am not this enough. Even though that's part of working with yourself and working with your pain, there's a part of you that has to kind of be ready to contact that and be able to be okay with feeling that, you know what, I feel like this about myself. And that can be the very, very hard part. So you're absolutely right that that's a crucial part of therapy, which is basically you have to drive the work, and it's about you, and no one can do it for you.
Yeah. And I feel like it's ongoing work as well. Even when you finish your therapy, there is still a lot of the self-reflection that you have to do in order to grow and heal. But the therapy will give you the tools to do that, if that makes sense. So yeah. Jonathan, anything? And Jonathan?
Yeah, you know what I'd say, just touching on your point, Trish, I'd say that learning never stops.
It doesn't.
Learning never stops. So I think that, yeah, you're right. I don't think a dose of, you know, therapy, or, you know, a book, or, you know, doing affirmations or anything like that, I don't think it's a short-term fix. I think that learning never ever stops. I think you've always got to be on top of I'll try and keep it just to the mental health part of things, but I think it just kind of, it spurts out to everything in your life. So I think for me, I think males probably do put pressure on themselves as well. I certainly do. I'm guilty of that. I think I think a lot of pressures sometimes come from pressures that I put actually on myself. So
yourself on top of the pressures of the world.
Yeah, where I feel like, yeah, I've got to be the man, and I've got to pay this, and I've got to be, not to be seen doing anything. It's not a case for anyone else. It's for my own self-gratification. I think, like, you know, I want the nice holidays for family, and I want this, and I want to have this house and this car and this and that. And that's just a pressure that sometimes actually I just put on myself. And I can't actually blame society or Instagram or people's lives that have got nothing to do with me. I think that's just me that does that. So yeah, I think we always learn, I think, and I learn certainly every day about mental health and just about myself, and I've definitely made some good changes, and I think I find myself like trying to help others as well. And I don't know, I seem to be a bit of a Florence Nightingale, and I don't know if it's a bit too early for me to be doing that, because I don't feel 100% healed, but I feel that I spot things that others don't in people. And sometimes I've asked the question of men, as is the topic, and they've sort of just been like, yeah, mate, I feel like shit. And I've seen that in them, I've identified it, and like I try and help them. And I don't know if that sort of secretly helps me. I don't know if it helps them. I don't know what it is, but I do try and help people as well. And I think it's just a journey, and it's true, like we learn every day. I'm definitely not 100% better. I think the term mental health and men, I think we've got a long way to go. I mean, we could talk, I could talk about this till tomorrow morning for the school run. I don't think it's something you can wrap up in, 40 minutes, but it's just a very good start. It's a very good start. We're doing it.
It's definitely a topic we could...
Everyone's doing it, and I think it's just one of them ones where it's just like, I don't know where it starts and it ends. I don't know if it's a case where there's more education that needs to be on people actually dealing with it, because we have this thing about not being able to talk to people. Why? Is it a case where other people that can't deal with it, or you feel that they can't handle what you're saying? Maybe we need more media attention on people being more aware of it and how they can help, rather than the people being able to speak. Maybe it's something that we can see. I don't know. It's a massive minefield that we will not get done in a 2-minute wrap up. But yeah, good chat, very positive. There's been some good points. Kwame is like, he's come out with some gems today, actually.
Yes, you put your hand up again, Kwame. You wanted to say something.
Because I jumped in before, but I kind of had a few things to say, which is basically in terms of the conversation we've had this evening, is really to say that to encourage. Obviously, we're aiming at men, but I guess everybody really to always evaluate their relationship with their emotions, and kind of reevaluate what they've potentially internalized in terms of the rules and permissions that they have in their mind about what is okay, what isn't okay, and reevaluate a lot of the things that we associate with musts and shoulds. Because when people start using the word I should this, and I must, those are kind of very elements of rigid rules around
and unnecessary pressures.
Yes. Because so it's almost like, without, let's say, going to therapy, it's about reevaluating almost like some of the rules and the assumptions and beliefs that we have about how we're meant to manage, how we're meant to be as a person, and how we're meant to manage our emotions. So part of it is mindset, part of it is skills. So one part of the thing is that what we go through shapes how we kind of navigate in life in one aspect of it as well. But also there can be an absence. So if we haven't had, let's say, a healthy exposure, there's certain skills that we just don't have in our toolbox. It's not that we can't do it. We just don't have it. We haven't learned it.
Right.
So part of therapy is learning some life skills that hasn't been intuitively learned as a child or through your upbringing. So whether it's kind of healthy communication skills, whether it's emotional regulation skills, if you haven't been exposed to it, you just don't know, full stop. From a male point of view as well, what I would also always advocate and encourage is that for men to stop to think more also about when you're kind of venturing into major, let's say, life situations, let's say whether particularly marriage and parenthood, also advocate people maybe even doing a burst of short-term therapy just to get their head around what their expectations of themselves and of the partner and of marriage might be, because quite often we internalize quite a lot of unhealthy, again, attitudes around what we're meant to be like as a husband or as a partner. So sometimes people might be a boyfriend and they have certain different mindset, and then when they become a husband, they might switch and they're like, what's that about? Because they've almost like there's activating certain rules in their minds.
Right. Yeah.
And also parenthood as well. Also something that I also encourage people to do is that when you are going to become particularly a new parent, I would also recommend that people also maybe think about some short-term therapy to think about how their own parenting has influenced them in terms of what kind of parent they're going to be, what things they're looking to do or not do. Also to become a bit clearer about their childhood experiences, in a way to try to start maybe breaking certain intergenerational cycles.
Right.
So intergenerational cycles is a topic that we touch on quite a bit. And that's going to have us here for another 2 hours. But
so that's what I'm saying. But in terms of major, like, particular parent, particularly become a parent and becoming, let's say, going to marriage, those are particular junctures to think about, to try to break intergenerational patterns and necessarily trauma patterns as well. So so that's what I would encourage, that if someone's going to become particularly a new parent, they might want to think about short-term therapy just to explore and to unpack what becoming a parent means to them, and also what things that they might want to kind of, let's say, not do.
Yeah, right. Definitely.
Okay.
Comment for you, Jonathan. Christine Andrew said it sounds like you're an empath.
Yeah, I thought that too.
Yeah, I thought that when you were saying it. Do you know what that is?
Do you know what? I was trying to get my other phone just to quickly see what it means. No, I'm actually on my phone.
Yeah, it's basically someone who feels energy in other people, and because you said that you was able to identify when,
I think
sometimes you don't feel yourself 100% yourself, but you can still pick up if somebody else is, and that's because you're sensitive to other people's energy. Do you find people come and talk to you a lot about their problems?
Yes, I get it all the time. I was in hospital for a pancreatic problem, and I was in hospital, and guy in my ward we just ended up talking and just like opening up to me about stuff, and I was thinking, I've never met this guy. I'm happy he did it, because we sort of exchanged messages now, and I left the hospital without sort of seeing him, and something just told me, I don't know what it was, I don't know if it was something spiritual or something, if it was, I don't know what it was, but something told me that I need to speak to this guy again. And I went back to the hospital the next day. I wrote my number down, gave it to the nurse with COVID and everything. And I just said, what was it, Adam? And I said, can you just give this number to Adam? Because I didn't have a chance to say bye. And within like 2 seconds of that, he texted me saying, thank you so much, blah, blah, blah. It was good to see you. So I don't know if I'm that word. I don't know what I feel. I don't know what it is. I get the people talking to me, but I also feel that like I can spot it. And I don't know if that's because of stuff that I feel. So I sort of I see it as the mask is gone with people, and I can sort of just see what is actually happening. I don't know. I don't have a direct answer for it. But I can see it. I see it. Yeah. So.
And that's another thing. I mean, like in terms of religion or spiritual beliefs, if there are different things that are out there, like if you are sensitive to energy, depending on what you believe, then you're not only carrying your emotions, but you're picking up on everybody else's. So that can be quite heavy on your spirit as well. So
yeah,
there's a lot. But I want to share my screen now so that I can just show people where to find you and to get some further help, if that's okay. So bear with me. Right, so we have been speaking with Kwame. You've been a pleasure and really insightful. And if you want to talk to Kwame separately and privately, you can go to his website and you can find him at www.kwameopoku.com. So I'll spell that KWAMEOPOKU.com. Where you can self-refer. Is that right, Kwame? You can self-refer, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah, I'll write it in the chat as well.
yeah, and then we can just pop this up. If anybody wants to email us directly, we can send you his information as well. There's also a gentleman named Ade Shakoya that we're working with on different projects, and he's got a group called My Brother's Keeper on Facebook. And that's just basically, it's a safe space where you can just join the group and talk as a male, because they feel that there's not enough safe spaces for people to be able to actually do that. So you could go to this group and have a chat. And there's also this website that our admin and producer found for us. It's www.batin.org.uk, find a therapist. And that's for people, the Black and African and Asian therapy network, basically. So if you want to find a specific therapist from Black, African or Asian background, here's where you'll find them. So again, you can contact us via email, messenger, and we can send you all of these bits out. But definitely, this is where you'll find Kwame, and this is who's been speaking with us today. So if you want to definitely go out and get yourself some therapy, because I personally don't see any shame in it whatsoever. It's something that if you need it, you need it. And I just think, like, as Jonathan was saying, having the conversations to remove the stigma, I think is something that's is necessary. So yeah, just wanted to share those contacts with you. And like I say, just reach out to us if you need us to give you that information again. But yeah, has anyone got any other final words before we wrap up?
Just thank you for all the guys to come out. Thank you, Kwame, for giving us your time today.
Yeah.
It was really insightful, very insightful, even for us, for the ladies as well, for everybody. Thank you, Anthony and Jonathan, because it was very brave for you to come and talk. Kind of, you kind of laid it there and you kind of bared it all. And you know, I feel like, as Jonathan was saying, it is that point where, okay, I'm not crazy. Like, he's just said it on here. You don't know what kind of path you're opening for other people who may have felt like, you know, who may have felt stigmatized by it or like they can't say anything. So it was really brave, and really appreciate that you guys coming on here and speaking about it so openly.
Yeah,
and honestly.
I think just, sorry to buy in, I think it's just really important as well, just to not care about it. I know it's hard to say, and a lot of people don't, but the reason I'm so open is because I'm just so over the whole oh yeah, he's crazy. Yeah, basically, yeah, no pun intended, but the bravado of it. And I'm not sitting here like, oh, I'm the top of the world and this and that. You know, everyone's got our day-to-day struggles and shit that's going on and rare tear. But I think I can openly say it because I'm on that path. So if someone looks at this and is like, yeah, do you know what? Fuck it, I'm gonna speak out tomorrow. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do it. And all I've done, I've just replicated this off someone I've probably heard. I don't know who's inspired me. Inspires the wrong word. I don't know who's made me feel confident to deal with stuff and talk about stuff and whatever. It could have been someone called Jared that I've seen maybe 2 years ago on a podcast or this. I don't know, but it's stuck with me and it's there, and I think that's important. So yeah, I think just little conversations like this, and this might help one person today, but it's one person more than it was before the conversation. Yeah, and it's a life, isn't it? So
looking at the comments, it's helped more than one person. So definitely, it's definitely a conversation that's needed. I think it's something that we will revisit again. I think very brave for people to come out and speak about their mental health. And I also think it's one of the most important aspects of our health is our mental health. And as Kwame said, trying to identify what, because have you ever had people come to you, Kwame, with anxiety and they have no idea where it stems from?
Yeah, I mean that's what comes up all the time in terms of people might say I'm depressed and I've got anxiety, so that comes up in the initial conversation, and then the work thereafter is unpacking what does it actually mean, what does it actually look like, where is it actually stemming from, and that can be the hardest, almost the investigative part is trying to understand what is beyond the symptoms, because anxiety and depression are just the symptoms. So it's like, what is underneath that? So yeah, but you get it all the time. So it's one of the things that can be very, very frustrating, because people feel the emotions it causes through their bodies, but don't know what is connected to.
Yeah, I mean, for me personally, I know sometimes I could be feeling fine on top of the world, and then boom, just anxious, knocks in, like,
knocks you off your feet.
And that's where I mean, just a little 101. That's where the key part of becoming attuned to your own emotions is kind of, first and foremost, becoming attuned to your body. So it's noticing that charge within yourself, and then starting to kind of track back and say, what was that about? Where did it come from? What is connected to? So what the work that really is about is becoming attuned into yourself, so that when you're experiencing something, you can connect to what might have caused it, and what is telling you. It's like basically it's like data.
The message,
it's a data, message and data. Then it becomes, what do you do with it? What's the best way to manage it? Is it just about calming yourself down? Is it about action? If it's action, what's the best action to take? So those are all the things. But also just want to say, real thank you to Jonathan, thank you to Anthony, thank you to Michael for sharing their stories.
Yeah,
definitely. All of
definitely.
you as well. And Jonathan and Anthony, when I hear people not having, let's say, great experiences with therapy or therapists, that it always kind of hurts me a little bit. But also, that is the reality of the work as well, is that sometimes these things happen, and unfortunately, hopefully, it doesn't put you off from going to see somebody else.
No, not at all.
Yeah. So because unfortunately, rupture happens in all relationships, even a therapeutic one with the best intentions in the world. And sometimes it's about working to find who kind of is the best fit for you. So that's what
and and you know what, just to answer what Kwame said, 100% would not put me off at all, ever. And it's true what you said. It's almost, getting with a therapist is like a relationship. And you need to get that right fit. And I feel that you do get the option to kind of have that kind of feeder session with a therapist. When I've gone private, they've given you maybe like 30-minute introduction, basically, where you can meet them and stuff. And so you're not tied into seeing that person. If you're not happy with them, change. And it's not a fact that that therapist is not right. It's just they're not right for you. That's it. They're a therapist. They've gone through the same training that you have, and Michael and Tina and everyone else. They're therapists, so they know what they're doing. It's just their energy doesn't go with yours. So it's just that they're right for somebody else and they're not right for you. So 100%, it wouldn't put me off. And you said an important point about the toolbox and getting like the right tools, basically, like having the right toolbox. So I think it's just about, so you're completely right with that. It's an important point you made about having the right tools to deal with certain things. And that comes with what I said about always wanting to learn. You know, you're going to get new tools as you go along. You're going to come across something else, and hopefully in time, you can get a tool out the toolbox and be like, right, I've got that for that. And it's just over the course of time. That's why you can never stop learning, never stop therapy, never stop, learning about yourself. So
self, it's just every day. It's an everyday thing, definitely.
It continues, It
really is.
and it's important as well that and that we are, if there's a load of people suffering with mental health issues, but they're not dealing with it because there's not proper signposting, or there's a stigma around it. You imagine we're in a society where there's just a load of pressure cookers just bubbling. So it's important to kind of get it sorted out on a society kind of and community kind of level as well, because if you've just got a whole bunch of people with untapped mental health issues or a series of complex emotions that they've not kind of tapped into or been able to, there's the whole bunch of pressure cookers kind of just bubbling around at the moment. And especially at times like this, we've seen people even in our line of work where they've kind of exploded. The pressure cooker has exploded, and you're like, I never even knew there was an issue at the time. And people are saying at the moment the world's gone mad, and I don't think it's so much that the world has gone mad, it's just that people have got to their boiling point and of a place where they might not have really dealt with it before. You're just seeing it more play out more than you might have before, because people are at the end of what they can manage.
And I think lockdown and George Floyd, as Kwame mentioned, has definitely just
powder cake.
Yeah. Okay,
Thanks.
guys. Oh, I thought it was a great session. I'm so glad that you guys were open and honest. I love your contribution to the group anyway, genuinely, and I'm really thankful that you guys came here and shared your story. Really brave and open and honest, nothing but respect.
Yeah, thanks guys.
Time and for doing this for us. Like as I said, we'll circulate your details, and if anybody wants to self-refer to Kwame, please do. It's better to just talk than get sectioned.
Kwame, I've already saved the website. I've already saved your website, and I've been looking through it in the past few minutes, mate, and it looks very good, very precise. So trust me, anybody I haven't meets that I feel needs any help, I'll be passing them your way. So
definitely, and
the best, all right.
What I'll say is that if I can't help personally due to availability for any reason, I'm always happy to have a conversation to signpost people to the best of my ability, and I'm open to giving people my time and my perspective on things and my advice on things in relation to therapy, questions around therapy. So please feel free to contact me if you've got any questions.
I'd like to have you back just on a session on generational cycles.
Sure.
At some point,
definitely. I'll send Amma a document, because I wrote an information sheet talking about immigration and childhood trauma,
right,
and the impact of family separations when obviously mass immigration from the Caribbean and Africa, and how much that splintered families, and that set in motion a lot of intergenerational trauma.
Yeah, we definitely will have you back to talk about that. Definitely. Okay. Thank you so much, guys.
Good night, everyone.
Thank you, guys.
Bye. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye, guys.